start.
Good afternoon, friends. How are you? Today we meet again to discuss or to share about the book that we have read. And today we are 5 here: Kak Pipit, Fajar, Jerry, and Ilya. And I have chat 5 questions that you need to answer to share your book. So here is the first. Maybe Fajar.
Oh, ladies first lah, ladies first lah.
Okay, Ilya then.
What about you?
Send again, yeah.
Yeah. Trust me, I'm not prepared at all. So please, someone else.
Oke, kalau gitu Kak Pipit. So, we are only 3 ladies here.
Okay, let me
go food. Aku mau go food. It's better Jerry first.
Let me go first lah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Jerry, please answer the questions and share your book.
Okay, thank you for the time, Desi. As I mentioned earlier, I will just discuss the same book that I presented last month because I wasn't really satisfied with the way I presented last month. So hope this is okay. And with that, I would like to share a screen for a more structured presentations.
Yeah. Thinking fast and slow.
Yeah. So can anybody see the screens now? Is it okay? So I'll start by the book that I'm reading is already 2 months going with a slow progress. Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman. My progress is only 45% at the moment. But as I said earlier, and also the friends like you told me last month that this book is very technical, and I would say yes. I must read it very slow and to understand what the author will explain. But I also discovered that some chapters are just like 2 or 3 chapters are just the discussing the same topics. So the next chapters is detailing the previous chapter. So it kind of we can just read these 3 pages in just very with a faster progress because of that. So moving to the next slide, my takeaways, as I mentioned last month. So the author would like to explain here about thinking fast and slow, where slow thinking is actually the more careful, more mental efforts in doing that, more awareness in doing that, and that's what the author uses as the terms as system 2. And fast thinking, as the opposite of that, is the intuitive thinking, or is activity of perceptions and memory. And in this case, the author is using term system 1. One of the fact that the author is presenting to the readers based on his research is that system 1, realize or not, we always think ourselves as a rational human being, but in practice, system 1 is taking more controls on our thinking because of the tendency of finding the easy explanation of things, right? And this is the introduction part of this book, and later on the explanation of the next chapters will back up these arguments. So the tendency of human being is to finding the easy explanation of things, and system 2, whereas system 2 should be, as a rational being, system 2 should be the one that is taking charge of the thinking, but on practice, system 2 is just approving what system 1 is presenting, and to say system 2 is just too lazy to think. And the way we system 1 and system 2 is like Kak Desi questions last week, that last month, which one is actually better between system 1 and system 2. This is I think this is the explanation that I can give, that when system 1 and system 2 is combined together, it results in intelligence. So what's the Daniel Kahneman say here is intelligence. Intelligence is not only the ability to reason, it is also the ability to find relevant material in memory, which is system 1, and to deploy attention when needed. Memory function is an attribute of system 1. However, everyone has the option to slow down the conduct and active research and active search of memory for all possibly relevant facts. So we are able to dig the memories and then allocate that memories to the relevant fact based on the system 2. And I mean, to not just accepting what is system 1 is presenting to us. And this is what we call the slowing down the conduct and active search of memory. So it's not just like snap like book of Malcolm Gladwell, Bling, is discussing about the snap judgment. So that's the system 1 is working on, do a snap judgment. And this is also resulting to the not trust of Daniel Kahneman to the expert. I remember one time Verindra is discussing about the Kematian Pakar. So I think I need to read that book as well. The death of expertise. So Daniel Kahneman is not really believe in the expertise. And the next one. So those who avoid the sin of intellectual sloths. I love how the Indonesian version translate this English, dosa kemalasan intelektual. Sound fun. dosa kemalasan could be called engage or tekun. People who are constantly fighting the sin of intellectual sloths atau kemalasan intelektual is sometimes we call tekun. They are more alert, more intellectually active, less willing to be satisfied with the superficially attractive answers, more skeptical about their intuitions, and the psychologist Kate Stanovic would call them more rational. This is rational. Rational means alert, intellectually active, and less willing to be satisfied with superficially attractive answers. In later chapters, the author will explain how does these attractive answers looks like, because our mind's tendency is to build the coherence stories, or even the Daniel Kahneman is saying that one piece of information we can make a whole story of one piece of information. That's the kehebatan system 1. That's really that's not good at some point. And 2 more slides. Be patient. Try to do it fast. Also, some takeaways here. The next chapter, I've been reaching the chapter 16, 17, and I found the explanation about anchoring. Anchoring, it's actually I translate as our inability to answer questions causing us to apply anchor. Because, for example, when we are finding the price of one particular product, we don't really know what is the actual price of the product. We know the actual price by comparing that product, the previous price we see, and then the new price that we found. So we can actually say this product is expensive or this product is cheap based on the first price that we see in the first place. So that's what the author say, the anchor. So there are many example also that the author is given here in the research, that people always think that they are not affected by anchor, but actually when they answer the questions, the Daniel Kahneman and friends could identify whether the answer is based on the anchor or not by the percentage. The more you are not affected by the anchors, the percentage will be 0. Otherwise, it's always mostly like 50%. 50% of the answer is affected by anchors. So how to apply this anchor in real life is when we are, for example, it's going to have a meeting with friends, with colleague, and the partner is going to discuss about the price. So it's better in order to the two parties the two parties will have anchor, because one will throw price and the other one is using that price as the anchor. So it's better, sometimes maybe it's wise to just wait for the opposite party to give the price before we throw the price, because otherwise they will use this as the anchor, and it may be not as an advantage to us. So that's how I translate to use this anchor in real life or in a work life situations. As last month also, Fajar is mentioning about availability heuristic. Availability heuristic is, I translate it to my own words, the hottest event will become hottest conversation topic. For example, what Fajar say about plane crash. When one accident of plane crash happening, we tend to avoid traveling by plane, because that's the definition of the availability heuristic actually as the process of judging frequency by the ease with which instance come to mind. The contoh yang paling gampang keluar dari pikiran kita, that's we tend to exaggerate that. So for example, this COVID pandemic, this is the author say availability cascade, kucuran availability, because we keep receiving the pouring of informations every day, and then when we talk about things, we cannot be getting out of the zone of availability heuristic of COVID-19. And same also with terrorism. For example, the author gave an example of terrorism. The media is always talking about terrorism, causing people to be afraid to go to some areas their perceptions that terrorism is very high. But in fact, the victim of terrorists, for example, people are killed by the terrorist, is less than the victim that is killed by the traffic accidents. So that's actually the and media also is playing a large part of this availability heuristic. And even when government is making policy about public policy, is based on availability heuristic, because people when there are something that people make change, people do demonstration on the roads, make that the topic that they are demonstrated about is bigger and bigger, and then the government should take that as a considerations to make the policy, so the mass will be cooling down, something like that. And the last takeaway so far is the stereotypes, right? The most representative outcome combined with the personality description to produce the most coherent stories. So in this chapter about stereotype, representativeness and stereotypes, there is the story about Linda, which is I found in most psychology book about Linda. So there is one personality, and then you personality, and then you give the descriptions about the personality, the person, and then people are asked to guess which type of personality he is. For example, I can give you the example of stereotypes that girls with glasses, we have a tendency to think the girl with glasses as the smart girls. That's the stereotypes, right? So there are I think like 3 chapters that the author is explaining about stereotype and representativeness. Okay, the most coherent stories are not necessarily the most probable apa mungkin terjadi, but they are plausible, dapat dipercayai. And the notion of coherence, plausibility, and probability are easily confused by the unwary. So we must be, the author is actually saying, you must be careful with this when somebody is presenting you the fact that really looks like coherence. It's not necessarily the most probable. Itu mungkin bukan sebuah fakta. It's not a fact, but it can be trust. I mean, it gives you sense of trust in the story because it's really coherent. So be careful of the coherent story because it's probably not the real fact. It's only plausible. I think that's all that I can present from this book today, and hopefully it's better than last time I presented last month. And to answer the 1 to 5 questions, I think I already answered it last time. So this is just the representing of the book. Thank you, Kak Desi.
Yeah.
Any question?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think this is a very hard book, yeah. I also try to understand it. Very hard to understand it. Okay. Is
Yeah.
there any question from Fajar or from Ferindra? Hello, Ferindra.
Or just
And from-
additional to what I explained.
Yes.
Maybe not a question, but a comment.
Yeah.
It is about the anchoring theory that you have just mentioned. So basically, the people are related to the first price that they see, right?
Yeah.
And
Mostly.
actually, this happened just yesterday. Yesterday, I went to a skin clinic, and there was a promotion, that I won, but it's kind of pricey, and it says the price is 5 million, and it becomes 2.5. Oh my God! It's so the discount is so big. I really want to buy that, but actually I wanted to buy that at that moment. But after I got back to home, oh my God, it was such a marketing tricks. I almost bought that treatment because I know that at this moment I cannot afford that because I have so many things to buy. But because of the initial price, from 5 million become 2.5. Oh my God, I was tempted to buy that. So that's the real example of anchoring effect.
That's right. That you can read also Dollar and Cents, Mas Fajar, by Dan Ariely. This is really crazy book to tell you about the logic of valuing things. It's we are so irrational.
Yeah, sometimes the price in Tokopedia or Shopee is like discount. Actually, the original price is increased first, then discounted.
That's the problem is because we don't know the real value of things.
Yeah.
So we value them by people giving the value, and then we anchor from that to determine the cheaper and expensive one.
Okay.
Thank you for the additional to give the real life.
Yes, maybe
Thank you for the
sometimes
sample.
sometimes we should learn how to make a value, the real value, yeah.
Right.
Because like Fajar said, they increase the price first before discount, but the price is not what it's not
Representative of the value of the real things, the real
it's not
value.
by the material of the
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that you buy, like shirt like this. the material is so cheap, but the
Yeah.
price is so high. It's
Right.
because to get the discount, yeah, to get the discounted. Okay. Any other comment, Farindra? Oh, Ilya. Hello, you are still muted, maybe? Okay.
Okay, how about now?
Yes, I can hear
Yes,
you now.
Mas Farindra.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that the book just now Jerry shared is got several things in common with two books that I ever shared in this forum. The first one is the predictably irrational with
Yeah.
the exact same things that Fajar mentioned, the anchoring issue.
Yeah.
And the predictably irrational is also written by Dan Ariely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first price number we hear affects what we are willing to pay.
Right. Right.
Mm.
That's it.
And also about the expertise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I still didn't get why the Daniel Kahneman didn't agree with the terms expertise.
Mm.
Is
The,
there
the
any elaboration on this part?
the depth of the expertise, because the expert Daniel Kahneman view and also the support of other psychologists say that the expert is merely actually just depending on their intuitive thoughts. Intuitive thoughts means in the like the book The Bling, that the book of Malcolm Gladwell in Bling. Malcolm Gladwell is also discussing about the expert and the orang awam gitu, in judging things. For example, the expert of they can see the antique. The expert can see the antique just by seeing the apa ya, the texture of the statue. They can see this is antique, or this is fake, something like that. So that's why, because the expert is sometimes also trapped in this illusion of expertise, but actually they are actually depending on their intuitive. This is the trap. Intuitive is the system one thing. So not necessarily all the experts are fallacy. I mean, they have the fault, but the tendency of the expert to rely on their intuitive. That's what the Daniel Kahneman is talking about.
So
Yeah,
it's about the intuition of personal, every individual.
Right. But realize or not, we are the more we expert in things, who agree with me, the more we expert in things, we tend to just do it intuitively, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, you driving a car, the first time you drive a car, you learn to drive a car, you are very aware. Your system too is alert. You very, but when you are expert, all of the sudden everything goes like unconscious. Your unconscious is taking nyetir biasa aja gitu. You don't need the mental effort to do that.
Like just how we are breathing right now.
Something like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay, understand.
So I have a question for you, Pak Jerry.
Yeah.
So how we differentiate expert who use their intuitive, or the expert who use the data? Because I always found experts that really use data, because experts should work
based on data.
Based on data, and they work that's a step, to prove that it is an expert needs a step to prove that his research or their research is proven. This research is real. So if the expert don't use the steps, we call it langkah ilmiah, in bahasa. If the experts don't use those steps, so his research or his result will easily denied or easily debated, or easily terbantahkan like.
Betul. Yeah, I really understand the question, Kak Desi questions. And this is not an easy thing to judge, because apa namanya, there is one book that I read previously, the calling bullshit, the art of skepticism in data driven world. So this book is discussing about even the collecting of data can have the apa namanya, bias, even the collection of data. So if the expert taking data, we also have to question whether the data is right or wrong. I mean, we have to test all these findings, not just receiving anyone presenting to you with the data. They call it data, but we also have to check the data whether it's right or wrong. People can take data from anywhere there, but we have to question also the validity of the data. Is this data is collecting from the right sample of the populations or not? Because that's the area where the false information on research can result of false information and research. We think that we already make a decision based on the data, but the data itself is corrupt. So we must be careful lah. I'm not saying that any presentation with the data is also there is a 50-50 chance that any argument based on data is also false.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said before, all experts needs to use scientific steps.
Yeah.
That is, if the experts don't use scientific steps, so the result of those experts easily said not valid.
Right. Yeah.
Quantitative data should be combined with qualitative data.
Yes. The golden rules.
Yeah. Okay. And how about Ilya? Ilya has gone, not here now.
Is there any Ilya here? Oh, Ilya is, Ilya is out, I think.
So, okay, I think, is there any addition questions for Jerry?
Good luck finishing the book.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
Thank you, Jerry, for giving us insightful presentation about this book. Maybe someday I will read this book also.
Yeah.
And second, the next presenter who? Maybe Fajar or Farindra?
Up to you.
Okay, I think you, Fajar.
Okay.
Just do your best.
I think for a quite technical book, it needs PowerPoint. So let me try myself first.
Dopamine. Okay, good. Nice book, yeah.
Nice, yeah. Dopamine.
Okay, where is my clock? Here, wait. So to make sure that I don't rambling too much. Okay, dear book pals, today I would like to share with you about the dopamination, finding balance in the age of indulgence. So there are three main points that I would like to share with you. The first one is the age of indulgence, which can lead to addictions. Its effect in our lives, for example, like becoming less happy, etc., becoming dysfunctional, and solution for that. Okay, so let me give you some real life example. We live in a modern era, and there are so many innovation in our lives, right? For example, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and on the other hand, there are also some new drugs, like nicotine, alcohol, or even hardcore drugs like opioids, morphine, etc., etc.
You know much, yeah?
I know because I read that, not because I know that word. sorry. But overall, this can cause problems. For example, let me give you a real life example. So, siswa SD kecanduan game online hingga 4 bulan bolos. Yeah, this is an extreme cases, but I have seen it in my real life. So one of my ex-student was become so addicted to gaming. So and I think that his study in university is almost is threatened. Maybe he will be dropped out. I don't know. Hopefully not. And this is common. The nicotine addictions. 18% of Indonesian students are addicted. It maybe even some of you already know someone who tried to stop nicotine, but they cannot do it. And also kecanduan judi online, ya, makan rumah makan sikat uang bosnya. Oh my God, sorry for this guy. But yeah, oh yeah, actually my friend, his father was addicted to gambling, and because addiction makes our brain so irrational. The dad did so many bad things like stealing something or cheating, corruptions, or even the last one was for selling their home for gambling. It's so crazy, right? So crazy. This is an extreme case, I know, but to be honest, at least in our lives, we also have some sort of quote unquote drug of choice. For example, my drug of choice is internet. I love internet, and I often forget how much time spent on that. Although I know that there are so many things that I have to do something. Something that I like from this book is that the author himself, this is Dr. Anna. He was very willing to share that actually she was addicted to. I know it's kind of weird. Addicted to romance novel. Yeah, real. Like I don't know. I don't know what are the risks of the romance novel, but there are plethora of romance novel, and at one point of her life, he keep doing that, and he becomes so disinterested to other things in her life. So yeah, for some people, this kind of thing can be addicting. Okay, what are the impact in our lives? So for example, especially the one of the first symptom is that the dopamine receptor in our brain will become less. What does that mean? It means that we become less sensitive to pleasurable activities. For example, in real life, if there is someone who are a beginner smoker, maybe like 1 or 2 cigarettes is okay. They are already satisfied. But those who are already addicted to smoke for so long, maybe it needs like 7 or 5 smoke in order to gain the level of satisfactions. It's also true for like drugs, like maybe porn or romance. Even the author also said apa itu? Ya pokoknya kalau she need to read more and more in order to be satisfied. And because of this, sometimes their life can be dysfunctional, especially for the drug addicts. And yeah, you know, some people just steal stuff in order to buy the drugs. It's extreme cases, but the normal cases is that they lose the ability to enjoy the simple life, because simple pleasure is like you know, eating good nasi goreng or taking a walk. But because of the dopamine receptor have become so, you know, it's gone, can say, those simple activities is not fun anymore. They need something high to fulfill their satisfactions. Okay, maybe I will not talk about this. No need lah. Oh yeah, and interestingly, the pleasure and the pain is like in our brain is controlled on the same part of the brain. So if there are too many pleasure, then our brain will try to balance the apa ini namanya si timbangannya bakal dibalance. So if there are too many pleasure, then the pain will also become much bigger as well. Bahkan there are
Scale.
still.
Timbangan is a scale.
Oh yeah, scale. Yeah, scale. So yeah, too many pleasure means too many pain as well. And at some point for the drug addicts, because they are addicted to pleasure so much, eventually they get like a body pain out of nowhere, like that kind of symptom. Okay, so what is the solution for that? The solution is that first thing first, you have to stop consuming the stuff that you are addicted to. For example, because although at first it will be gone, but after like 30 days or 90 days, eventually this dopamine receptor will be healed, and you can enjoy the daily life of the pleasure of daily life again. The author said that when she was addicted to romance novel, she felt that her husband was not very exciting, her kid was not as boring, her profession was not interesting enough. So she indulged on the romance novel again and again. And when she looked back again, after she stopped doing that, and she realized, oh my God, what happened? What happened when I was quote unquote addicted to romance novel? Yeah. And after she stopped doing that, she can enjoy the daily lives again. Another solution is to do some healthy, painful activities, because as I mentioned before, there is a scale in our brain between the pleasure and pain. So if the scale is unbalanced, you can try, if the pleasure is already too big, then we can do some healthy pain in order to balance this stuff. For example, like exercising, cold shower. What else? Actually, I just found out today, fasting is good. Fasting. What else? Yeah, I think that's this three lah, at least.
Hemat uang is very painful.
Oh yeah, actually, there's also radical honesty. So which means that you cannot lie. You have to be radically honest in your life. Because I know that sometimes we lie like 1 or 2 in a day. So
white lies.
Radical honesty is painful for other people, not for people who tell it.
Maybe both of them. Both of them.
Radical honesty. This is new terms for me. Radical honest.
So yeah. So basically, any other solution is that you have to control your environment. You have to get away from those possible triggers. For example, like removing the number of the drug dealers from your phone, because when we are, craving, you cannot control your brain because it's the primitive brain or the addictive brain that is working. Maybe and other join the communities like AA and be radically honest. I think that you can be radically honest, but at the same time, you can try to, not to make the word so sharp. You can try to blunt it, but still honest. Anyway, that's all. Okay.
Don't you think, Bajar, if we are radically honest in Indonesia, we can go to jail?
It's dangerous to be honest.
Apa itu undang-undang ICT itu ya? Oh, ITE. Oh ya.
Can you give example what example of radically honest? Maybe, oh, you are bad, you are stinky. You said to your friend like that.
I think maybe radically honest in this way is like being vulnerable to our
Okay.
to expressing our vulnerability, expressing our insecurities.
Be yourself aja gitu.
Yeah, show yourself, yeah. Show your honest feeling, yeah.
Because sometimes we try to, you know, save our ego or something like that. But for these people, maybe it's better to be radically honest and try to be as honest as possible.
Yeah. Okay, be yourself.
Mm.
Okay, I think this is good book. And new things that I get from Fajar presentation today is that pain and pleasure is will be balanced, yeah.
Yeah.
So if we happy so much, we have to balance it with do something painful, yeah. Yeah.
But maybe the better interpretation is that if we indulge too much on the good things, we can be addicted. Although there is a possibility for that, and in order to balance that, we need something, some playful thing to do.
Yeah, this is new. Okay, I have a question, but I forget it. Maybe Serindra or Kak Pipit.
Yeah, maybe other can ask first. So maybe Kak Desi will get the question back later.
Yeah.
I just want to add, Mas. This is very related to the book I read. Thinking Fast and Slow. Addictive is something we do intuitively. When we addict, we tend to do it intuitively without apa namanya without thinking about it. Ya kan, ya. And it is also related to the book that I read, Atomic Habits by James Clear. The way to break this addiction is by apa namanya remove, like you say, the solutions. Remove all the triggers.
Yeah.
Ya kan, remove all the triggers, or make for example, maybe he is very, Dr. Anna is very addictive on reading. This is funny because reading can be very addictive and it's not good, yeah.
Yeah, if it's reading. Excessive.
Yeah, excessive reading. And maybe removing books, removing that romance book from her side, ya kan. And then the third one about brute apa namanya, radical honesty. Radical honesty, I translate it as like you say, vulnerable. To put it this way, you cannot cure somebody who are not believe that he is sick, right? So you need to realize that you are sick, then you need apa namanya, kamu butuh dokter. Kalau kamu nggak percaya kamu sakit, kamu tidak butuh dokter, something like that. So
don't deny.
Yeah, so just accept that you are. I'm too addictive. I need to stop this, and that it is the motivation for you to be apa namanya, to find solutions for that addictiveness. I think this is very related. So I think this is to kill the dopamine things. I was thinking that dopamine will talk about brain a lot more. Brain, ya, karena dopamine kan something in brain.
Produce in brain, ya.
Yeah, but in fact this is more to behavior, ya.
Yeah, it's actually after I read this, actually this book is about addiction. But I think in modern era, many of us maybe have our own bad habits, let's say, at the least, or at the very extreme is like addictions to some things.
Right. So does the author refer to some popular books?
No, I think no. He didn't refer to anything, but I On the other hand, I got this book from this podcast by Huberman Lab. I really recommend you listening to this. But
Oh, Huberman Lab.
I think there is 2 hours of podcast here, and it is actually enjoyable. Oh, it's actually enjoyable. I really recommend you to listen to that.
Okay.
Okay, I remember.
Thank you, Mas Fajar.
Yeah, I think addiction comes from individually activity. Maybe like shopping, you shop individually. You consume Facebook individually. So if we spend our time with friends, sharing all the time, try to understand what they want and everything, so the addiction will go on. Yeah. And I think about this before I remember. Sorry, I'm in mall. So I think about this before I see Fajar Marta print. Yeah, and he said that the solution of addiction is spend your time with your friends. Yeah, yeah, like that. So that's it. So if you want to avoid addiction of everything, just spend your time with
Alter the attention.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah,
give
I agree with that.
attention to your friends, your environment, so you can feel thankful. Yeah, you can feel the like Fajar said, easy or small
Connected.
place. Yeah, small place.
Yeah, enjoying the simple pleasure.
Small pleasure. Yeah, simple pleasure. Okay, maybe Karindra or Kak give comments or questions to Fajar. I think this is important. Yeah, this book is important for us because nowadays we forced to do something individually. Yeah, do something so alone. Yeah, like reading book or consume social media. It is so individual.
Yeah, and if it's excessive and it become deliberating, it harms your life, then you have to stop this habit. And yeah, basically that.
Hello, Karindra.
Hello. Hello, Fajar.
Yes.
Oh yeah. Actually, the book that you just shared now, I saw your post on our group about this book, this cover of the book. I didn't do the research for it, but I expect that this book is about a nation, a literal nation. So maybe it will talk about like public policy or maybe a few politics stuff. But turns out it's a whole different. It's more talking about our behavior.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that the subtitle of this book saying about in this age of indulgence. Do you mean that the age of indulgence is only on the recent years or the recent past years? But because I think that the dopamine itself the addiction itself is humans basic behavior, or maybe there are a lot of potential that the human long before our century also have their own addiction, but maybe in different perspective of or different stuff. Is there any explanation of this book why it says that in the age of indulgence? Is this mentioning about the specific age or not?
Okay. Actually, this book concerned about this modern era. Although in the past there are some cases of people who are addicted. For example, do you remember when the British send, I don't know, ganja, bukan ganja, apa itu, ke Cina to sell So because because British want to buy tea from China, but British don't have the commodity to trade. So eventually the British send, like, I don't know what kind of drugs is that. I think ganja, not ganja.
Opium.
Yeah, yeah.
Opium
So basically,
policy.
yeah. And then they send it to the China. So many people are addicted to that. And it becomes, what's the name of the war?
Don't know the word. I just know that there is opium policy.
Yeah, and it becomes the opium war, basically.
Yeah.
And eventually, because the China lose, they have to release Hong Kong from China. So can you imagine that? Because of drugs. Okay, so back to the question that you said about the age. It is because of the system in the capitalism. For example, like the social media are designed to be addicting, like TikTok, YouTube, because the company want the customer, the customer, to spend as much as possible in their apps so they can see the ads, the advertisement. It's also true for the, the nicotine, the smoke. Actually, at first, smokes was considered as, medicine. Yeah, at first in America, but it will turn out to be poison. But later on, it was marketed as the coolness, something cool, something that we have to use in order to be different, to be cool. Actually, it doesn't make sense. But many teenagers falls for that, and basically it's because of how profitable it is.
So it means this book more addressing the addiction of the modern era, like
Yeah,
technology stuff like social media or
I think it's more
gaming.
about the addiction in general, and in modern era, there are more people who are addicted compared to the past. Basically that.
Digital era ya.
Yeah, digital era, this drug era, etc. Okay.
Yeah, then I think you might need to be interested with the book that I've already, the hidden algorithm between Facebook, Apple, Google. They explain the why they develop their stuff like that. Like they develop the Google or Facebook to make the user are tied to their product, something like that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why how kids are addicted to TikTok, YouTube.
Yeah.
Even my nephew, 2 years
Mm.
old, kind of addicted, and the parents have to stop that. But if thankfully he stopped watching YouTube too much.
Yeah.
I think the question is, we have to ask ourselves, are we still independent or not? Independence to do something or not, yeah?
I think the answer is that we are still independent, but not as independent as we think. Yeah.
Right.
Like what Jerry said, we think we are irrational, but maybe not.
Maybe not
Practice,
really.
maybe not. We always think we are better, but the fact says different.
We still have much time, yeah? Okay, Kak Pipit, have to finish your line.
Or Perindra?
Mas Ferindra, I think Mas Ferindra.
I think Parindra.
Actually, I haven't finished my book, so I have not yet prepared the reason. Or maybe I just can share a little about the book that I read last year and that I haven't shared in the forum. Just
why there is your picture behind? Your picture behind?
Yeah, I use this
filter. I
use this filter background when I was obliged to turn off my camera in some seminar last time. So I use this to some kind of shit.
it it distracts us.
I will do like that someday. Okay.
Okay, I'll switch.
Okay, Farindra, you can start your book.
Yeah, okay. There's no fancy presentation, but I only want to share a little about the book that I read on December last year. It was a fiction book by Ahmad Tohari. It's one of my favorite author in Indonesia. It wrote a fiction and several books of him are taking some kind of real life sample from Indonesian political situation at that time. There are like Ronggeng Dukuh Paruk, if you ever heard. It was also filmed in
Right.
Sampenari. There are also some political real life behind that, even though he was using fictional character, fictional place, but it used an analogical political situation at that time, and also Kuba, which was talk about. I think if I'm not mistaken about the DITII, pemberontakan DITI, and also lingkar tanah lingkar air, also similar like that. But the book that I read on December last year is Orang-Orang Proyek. So this book talk about the situation on the new Orde Baru. So there was several main figure on that books. The first one is Pak Tarya. He's a ex-civil servants, retired civil servants. It's like the wise man in the book. So he just casually fishing every day, but then when the main figure of the book have some confusion on his life, he just go to this man, the Pak Tarya, to ask for some suggestion. Is the wise man of the book. And then the next one is Kabul. He's the idealist civil engineer, and in this book he was the project supervisor. So the book talking about the project of building a bridge in a village, building a bridge so that it can be accessible. It can be more accessible to everyone, to open the access into some remote area. It builds a bridge, and on this project, Kabul act as the supervisor, as an idealist supervisor, idealist engineer. He came from a struggling family. Maybe I can say his family was poor, but he is still privileged enough to go to college, to finish his college, and then he's working while he also spend his income to pay the tuition for his sister. So maybe in Jaksel way we call it sandwich generation. And there is another maybe antagonist figure is Del Kijo. Del Kijo is also came from the similar background as Kabul, also not from a fortunate family. He also came from the struggling family, and also privileged enough to finish his education, but he's not as idealist as Kabul. So yeah, he do some kind of dirt politics in his project, and unfortunately in this part he's in a managerial staff on top of Kabul. So any decision from Kabul, the idealist engineer, still needs to be approved by Dalgijo, who was his supervisor, who was his manager. And then the other figure is, what can I say, pelengkap ya, extras like Awati and also the other. And there are the conflict from this project is, although this was taken from novel written at 90s, which was taken a situation in Orde Baru, but somehow I still can find it really with existing condition, like when Delgijo asked Kabul to use the residual parts of the project so he can cut off the money spent on that, and also he asked Kabul to do it faster, so the time when the political party leader come to this project, the project can be finished. The Kabul is already denied that. He said that if we finish it earlier, then the quality of the bridge won't be as good as I have designed at the first time. But still, the pressure from Delgijo and also from the upper parts of their party always push this project to be finished at the time when the political party leader came to this area. And yeah, you know how the end will be. I won't be spoiled since I saw Kak Jerry will read this book. There's not much spoiler because yeah, I think this we can still be relate with this condition. That's what I so amazed with this book. I read the book that was written maybe 10 or 20 years ago with the political situation at that time, but reflecting on our current condition, we still not changed that much. And that's how it amazed me. At the same time, it made me sad. It made me yeah,
It's
to
like
see how
the
our
prophecy
condition.
of the future. Yeah, the book is the
Yeah,
prophecy.
not the prophecy. It also happened on
It's
that
happening.
time. Yeah, it's happening at that time, but 20 years later, it's still not that much. There's not much change about that.
Basically, we are not going anywhere.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. We think we advance at some parts, but at the end of the day, we just not going anywhere. Yeah, that's what I can share from this book that I find it interesting. Orang-Orang Proyek by Ahmad Tohari.
Yeah, maybe you want to answer the 5 questions that I give or not. If you don't answer, it's okay. Because I
Oh,
have
what is the book about?
comment.
I have already shared it. Why do you choose this book? Because I like Ahmad Tohari's writing and also the theme. Is there any quotation that you like? I didn't mark any quotation because I just read it until finished. How this book changed you? Nothing changed me. Only
Just
amazed
knowledge.
me. And, yeah, annoyed me and amazed me at the same time. The rate of this book, 5 out of 5, I think. A bit
Okay.
subjective since I
Yeah.
love this author.
I want to know, are you a student or you work now?
Sorry?
Are you a
Can repeat?
student or you work now?
I work already.
Okay. Yes, you have to know that I'm orang-orang proyek. Project. I read this book maybe more than 20 years ago, and now I'm orang-orang proyek. You know, so I really know that what the book style is even until now. Yeah, it's happening until,
Yeah.
and I'm in it.
Hmm.
To be idealist, you know, to maintain our idealist thinking.
Yeah.
I only comment
Yeah.
that. Maybe Fajar or Jerry or Kak give comments or questions.
Hey, who's that? Fajar?
My
Jerry,
ponakan.
Jerry. Oh, yeah.
Oh, this I just read on Goodreads. I think there are more about morality discussed in this book, yeah. Like the comparisons of good and bad, the fighting between doing the good and bad in the figur utama kali ya. It's interesting because the way I just read one of just the just a little bit of the book, and it make me really want to, I think apa namanya, kadang membaca sesuatu yang mempertanyakan rasio-rasio gitu itu menarik gitu. Mungkin seperti itu bukunya ya.
Yeah, yeah. The Pak Tar, yeah, he's the wise man that always told Kabul some wise stuff, but he's not judging, he's just giving option so that Kabul can reflect on himself. That's the interesting part.
Like the conflict of interest happening
Like
in, yeah.
Like Semar in Punakawan.
Oh yeah, he's like the Semar.
Source of wisdom, but without judging.
Also more like apa namanya, philosophically, philosoph.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Boleh. Thanks for recommending.
Maybe the differences between at that time, 20 years ago, or now. At the time when the book first publishing, and now is at that time there was no KPK. Yeah? Today there is KPK. Yeah. Today we have e-lelang, yeah, and because so the project announced electronically and lelang electronically. So we can, so it is easy to say is there any breach or any corruption or not, yeah, like that. So maybe at that time it is bigger than today, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but its budget also that time not as big as now. So in the end, maybe kalau compare, maybe same. So more corruption in the past, but the budget was smaller than now. Now less corruption, but the budget is bigger.
Yeah, the difference, the one again is at that time the corruption or the projects centralized in Jakarta or in Jakarta, but today it's decentralized in many districts in India, like that.
Yeah, I think just to correct my previous assessment, I think maybe we actually moving. But I mean, like the right Ahok last time was really the sample of people who fight for the fight for the right, yeah, to use his political positions to defend masalah middle people, masyarakat menengah ke bawah gitu ya. Yeah, we need more people like that.
Middle class.
Yeah, middle class. So we actually getting better from previous conditions.
Yeah. I also realized that we have e-procurement website now, so we can all see how the tender is going.
But there is always a hole.
Yep.
Yeah, that can be useful for doing bad things of corruption.
Yep.
There is always hope.
Yeah,
but one thing for sure, I will read this book too. Orang-orang proyek.
Yep.
Thank you, Mas, for the books.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe I can copy some of the way to do the project.
Can I add something? Just add something.
Yeah, sure.
So I have a story. So my friend worked as a contractor. He's an engineer, and one of his company's biggest client is TNI. I don't want to say which TNI, but basically the TNI say that if you won this project, then you have to give us some percentage of the amount of the money. I don't maybe like 20%, 30%, or even 40%, all all to the 10E, and the 10E don't do anything. And if the company reject that options, they will just simply choose other company that want to take that contract. So, well, yeah, yeah, it's something that I remember when you said orang-orang proyek kan. Yeah, well, that's the reality.
Langsung ini ya, stereotipnya ya. Stereotipnya muncul.
Yeah, yeah, it's in real life.
You know what's worse in Indonesia is sometimes there's no even English translation for it. They call it rezeki. There's rezeki. Kenapa ditolak? Why do we tolak rezeki? Like they don't understand what is rezeki in English. There's no concept of rezeki in English, right? But in bahasa it sounds very positive, like ya nggak apa-apa lah rezeki. Kalau dikasih kok gitu.
Iya, ya, rezeki apa ya?
Nggak ada.
Nggak ada ya.
Bless from God.
Blessing lah, blessing.
Bless no.
Bless of God.
Blessing
Such an
is
irony.
too holy. It's
Too holy ya.
Okay.
Rezeki non halal itu it's too holy kalau dibilang rezeki dari.
Oh. So you are all here, not orang-orang proyek ya, only me ya.
No, I mean my husband usually join itu apa mas tender, right?
Oh,
But
your
small
husband.
tender.
Okay.
Small.
Okay. Is there any comment? Again, any or no? Thank you, Kalidra, for your
Let's
presentation.
move
Guys,
on,
I want
ya.
to turn off camera because I'm putting on makeup now. It's too embarrassing.
It's your turn now, Kak Pipit.
No, Desi dulu, I'm last lah.
Okay. My book today is 24 Eyes. This is novel from Sakai Sugoi. Maybe you can find it easily in Gramedia. And this book is about a teacher who teach 12 students. And this book setting in Japan, 1927 to until 1946. And the setting is at war, maybe Pacific War, and after that World War II. And the teacher really hates war, and this book tells us about the effects, the bad effects of war. That is poverty, disease, family that died, educated children, jobless, and etc. So the teacher teach 12 children, and at the end of this book, the children are what to say, so sad, yeah. Their destiny is so sad. Some of them sold by their parents because of poverty and be like geisha, and one of them cannot continue the school because the death of her mother, and many of them dead because of war. Yeah, and at the time, men, men hope to go to war. So there are many missing men there, and missing that. And the husband of this teacher name is Oishi. Her husband is also dead because of war. And Miss Oishi has 3 children, or 3 or 4. One of his children, her children died because of war, and the smallest child, the girl one, is dead because of dysentery. Yeah, and the end of the story is when they buried the uh, her smallest child, yeah, the girl one, and it was so sad. Yeah, they are so poor. They have no flower. They have no peti. Yeah, they have no wood to bury the children, the smallest child, and the family really cried about it, and she really hates war. Yeah? It's just because the war, it's just because the war. That she always said that. And the end of this book is the teacher, Miss Poisi, have a little party to with the students that still alive. One of her students blind because of war, and only two that only two can continue uh, their studies and be a professional. And later, they, yeah, like I said before, died and then be a merchant like that. And one of the first students be a weapon seller because their family find a weapon house that full of weapons, and they sell it and they become rich. Why did I choose this book? Like I said before, I like novel. I like history, and I always choose book like this, uh, fiction, and with war setting, yeah, with an history setting. Uh, I don't believe the story, but I almost believe the setting. I have no quotation, and how this book changed. Yeah, I have insight after reading book like this. I hope Indonesia many has books like this. Yeah, Indonesia or Indonesian uh, what Indonesian author many what creates books like this. Why? Because we have to see, we have to feel how bad the war is. So Indonesian people not easy to be provoked. Um, like our condition now, we are easy to be angry or uh, to be provoked. Yeah, I think. So if we read book like this, we will try to avoid provocation. And I think in Indonesia, author of Indonesia, um, rare, yeah, creating book like this. So I hope Indonesian author more produce book like this. And what is great, I think I will read this book 7 because yeah, this is the kind of book that I like. Um, that's all. Short presentation. I also read, okay, from last meeting until now, I have read 3 books and 2 novels and 1 non-fiction book. And my next book will also like this book, but this is about fascism in Spanish. Uh, and I will share to you okay, next book. Yeah, that's all. Because it is popular, so it is so easy to read, yeah, and so easy to present.
How many pages? How many pages, Kak?
It's about 243 pages.
Standar ya. It's in English ya, Kak? Ya?
No, it is
Indonesia.
Bahasa, but
Oh,
the
bahasa.
only the title is in English, 24 eyes.
Yeah, I think reading this, I never actually read this kind of this is fiction also, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the one thing I can get from your presentation about this book is that fiction sometimes help us to understand one country cultures, yeah kan? Because sometimes when author put the country, the setting of the country, pasti semua all including that the cultures and how they live actually. So yeah, maybe I will consider also reading fictions.
This book really in describing the poverty. Yeah. The teacher at the first of this book said that she can afford to buy bicycle, but at the time of the war, she cannot afford to buy bicycle, and she also be a beggar because she cannot work as a teacher. Her husband is dead, and she doesn't have anything to eat. So she begged fish to eat to her family. So it's tragic, and um, they I think she's a teacher. I think she has maybe she had finished graduation from junior high school or senior high school, but she cannot afford their life, and it happens everywhere. Anyway, at that time, in Japan,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and Japan for boys who has graduated junior high school or senior high school will called by government to go to war. So the story tells when she waves her students to go to war, and they have to be quiet there, but there is the last meeting of them.
This is not based on true story, yeah.
No. It's fiction.
Fiction.
Yeah. Then the
Study
Sakai
context.
Tsuboi, the author of this novel, also said that she hates war, and this is a nice story to tell public that war is so tragic, so dramatic.
Maybe I will give some comment.
Yeah.
So I think maybe because we have stay in peace years
Era,
for so long, we become we are not used to the cruelty of war at all. Maybe our grandparents know that, but because we are we are so far from that, and we cannot empathize with those who are still in war right now. For example, like in Yemen, in previously in Afghanistan, Iraq, etc. I think maybe that's the lesson. Maybe in order for us to understand how they feel, maybe we can read this novel.
Yeah. Okay, if there is no any comments, so we can go to Kak Pipit. We have about 20 minutes more. Oh, you're
I
beautiful
still look
now.
like Kabuki right now, talking about Japan. Certainly not. Anyway, but I will show the book, then after that I will turn off camera, okay? So this book I'm going to present is actually Fajar already knows because I presented it also yesterday. So the book is Speeches That Change Our Times. Speeches That Change Our Times from 1945 to the present. So later on, I can share the Goodreads, or someone who can share the Goodreads, please do it in the chat box. So then I will turn off the camera, but I will keep speaking. Right. So the first question is,
what is the book all about?
why is the book about? Okay, so the book is a reference book. Reference books means this is not someone's ideas. Usually an actual book, you have ideas and then you present it to people, right? So reference books mean if you want to know a collection of history or a collection of something, you just need to go to this book. And this book is the reference book for famous speeches all throughout history in 1945 until now. And the book have a full transcript of famous speeches that were delivered by famous people, but some of them were not so famous. And only one person was given one particular speech. Yeah. So, for example, if you know JFK has several memorable speeches, but they only chose one from his speech, something like that. So that's the book is all about. And then the next question is, why do you choose this book? Actually, I chose this book because of emergency. So maybe some of you already know that I got a short notice to go to Washington, D.C. and I only had 6 hours to pack and then go. Then I had to go. So I didn't bring any book with me, basically. So on the plane, I was able to watch movies, and then after that, when I reached Washington D.C., the first thing I did was I bought a book, and then this book that I thought was interesting among other books, so I just bought it and then read this all the way on the flight home and whenever I had a chance. So that was the reason why I chose this book, and why particularly I chose to purchase this book, because I also teach speech and debate in my class here. And I usually ask my students to do some oration. And usually we use the text from Abraham Lincoln, from Mahatma Gandhi, from Nelson Mandela, from, who's the other guy? Winston Churchill, so all of these people, right? So I think this could be a good source for me to teach my class. That's why I chose this book. Is there any quotation that you like from this book? Yes, I like the quotation from Obama's speech, which is, he said, victory is not the goal. Victory, wait, let me open it. Obama, what page? Obama inauguration. It was 186. So the quote, what I like, is from Obama's victory speech. Yeah, in 2008, he said, "This victory alone is not the change we're looking for. It is only the chance for us to make that change." So kemenangan, especially in pemilu, is not the end goal. Bukan itu tujuannya, right? So kemenangan is only kesempatan for us to membuat perubahan, basically. So I really like that one, because a lot of people, most of us are just caught up to victory. Like we want to win, but so what after that? You know, I think that is what happened after winning is actually more important than the winning itself. So I think it's a good reminder for me. And then the next, number 4, how this book changed my life, right? Okay. So I have always believed that words have really strong impact in our lives, and this book somehow amplify it. So there are so many people who have great ideas, but they cannot formulate these ideas in a good way, so it's not memorable, and they are not memorable. And on the other hand, there are also famous figures in history whose ideas are actually quite simple, but the words are very pas gitu ya. It's very memorable, very touching, like that, and then people will remember that. So that for me shows the strength of words. For example, like if you can talk about the book Thinking Fast and Slow, right? A lot of books reference Thinking Fast and Slow, right, Jerry? But there's no quotation from Thinking Fast and Slow that is memorable.
Right.
So it's different from a book like When Breath Becomes Air, for example. The content is very simple, but the title is very memorable. It's like imagining someone in the last second of his or her life when the last breath becomes air. So that's quite touching, I would say, right? So I think the formulation of words in our ideas are very important. So probably that's where I can, how it changed my life. What's the rate of this book? I read this 5 because the book is not only talking about the speech that are memorable, but also talking about the important moments of this person's life. So when the speech was by Fidel Castro, for example, and not only I learned about the speech itself, but also the book told me about the most important moments in Fidel Castro's life. So that's just like an extra information that I think it's quite valuable, and also gave an idea of the most important moments in history as well, like the formation of United Nations, all of this thing. So I take that as an extra, a bonus, yeah, other than the speeches. That's why I give it not just 4, but also 5. Okay, so that is it from me.
Wow, it is interesting, yeah. So where can I buy that book?
I'm not sure, but all of these speeches are available online. So maybe if you really want to read it, I can give you the daftar isi and then find the transcript yourself. So read it separately.
Okay,
Right?
yeah.
Oh, another thing I forgot to say this. A lot of famous speeches in history were not even written by the person. Yeah. So presidents, prime ministers, all of these famous people have a team of speech writers. So it's a bit unfair if, for example, JFK's famous quote, right? Ask not what your country can give to you, but ask what you can give to your country, for example, right? It's probably not even his own words. The only president in the United States who wrote his own speech was only Abraham Lincoln. Other than that, they had teams of people who helped them with the writing, including Barack Obama.
That's important.
That's important. Okay, so that's the last one. Yeah.
There is always a science behind this memorable speech.
Yeah, and it's not fair because the person who wrote it probably never be mentioned.
Pasti. But this is very interesting, Kak. I have a question.
Yes.
What is actually from all the speech that you read? What is the red apa namanya benang merah dari sebuah speech yang can change the world?
I think the speech in this case, I think a lot of them are emotional speech that actually change the world. It's something that is genuine. For example, the most my most favorite speech in this book is actually by Che Guevara. Che Guevara. If anyone familiar with Che Guevara before?
Yeah. Che Guevara.
Okay, so I like his speech when he presented in a General Assembly in the United Nations. So he was very passionate. I can tell from his speech when he criticized the United States of America, right? So if you are on fire in your heart, like maybe if you feel a certain extreme emotion, maybe berapi-api, although you read it in written, I can tell, I can imagine like he was so on fire. Like maybe Pak Sukarno's speech, but although you read it on the text, like you can imagine how the person speak it, right? So I think passion is really important in our speech. We have to feel strongly about something, and then after that, this feeling might be transported to other people.
I think diction also. Diction that can touch the emotion of audience.
Yes, diction. Yes, diction is of course important. Like even, this book, a lot of books are famous because of the title. Yeah, I have mentioned about when breath becomes air. Another book title is Things You See Only When You Slow Down. You know that book?
Yeah.
Right? This book is famous for the title. When you read it, oh, nothing new. You get what I mean? But it's when you read it, when you read the title, it's very touching. You can see it. Or the book
Emotional, yeah.
emotional, like
That's
by the
emotional.
Paulo
Yeah.
Coelho. Paulo Coelho. By the river Piedra, I sat down and wept. So
I
all
think
of this is it's very emotional. It's,
all of
Kelemahan
things that
manusia.
the memorable are the one that trigger or emotional.
Yes, and that's why I just can say the title of this book's not even looking up because it's stuck in my head, for example. So yeah, I think emotion is really important in the words.
So what makes these people can produce that kind of speech? Is it because they are or let's say we want to produce this quality speech lah ya? That's by reading, right? Reading a lot.
Yes, a lot of reading. And actually, Jerry, you said you never read fiction before, right? Yeah, actually, a lot of speeches in history that are famous, they're reference to famous literature. Usually. It's either maybe they try to quote Shakespeare, like to be or not to be, and that is the question. Or it was the best of time, it was the worst of time by Charles Dickens. In the future of things to come by blah, blah, blah. So a lot of famous speeches actually reference to cultural aspect of the society. And one of them is actually fiction, but not just fun for fiction for fun, you know, it's fiction like classical, the one that is critically acclaimed. So I think probably if that's another reason to read fiction is so you know what's up.
Yeah. Exactly.
In that kind of sense.
Yeah. Interesting.
If you want to start, maybe start with Charles Dickens.
Charles Dickens,
Charles Dickens novels. Yeah, Tale of Two Cities or the what is it? The Great Expectations. There are so many, but then his books are referenced a lot of times in politician speeches and things like that.
Okay. Thanks, Kak, for the reference. I look up.
And that's it, Kak. Dan
I think
ada Soekarno, ada speech Soekarno di situ, Kak?
No, actually I was thinking sayang banget gak ada Soekarno di sini.
Berikan aku 10 pemuda akan kuganyang Malaysia ya.
No. Actually, I will tell you something about Soekarno ya. Unfortunately, a lot of Soekarno's speeches or words are not original. So that's another consideration. Like if you know his book, Di Bawah Bendera Revolusi, a lot of the content of Di Bawah Bendera Revolusi were actually a summary from other books. From other books that he read that time. But other people in Indonesia probably did not have time or did not have access to read the book.
Of course,
so, that's why it's hard. Like the famous speech by Soekarno is The Year of Living Dangerously. The Year of Living Dangerously, it was not even original. It's actually by an Italian writer or something mafioso.
I just read it. Okay. So, where do you know this information? Maybe is there a book?
No. We have to search further. I think we sometimes go down the wormhole of Wikipedia or something that we can usually find out. But a lot of information that is not available in Indonesia is actually available online now. So you just need to search it out.
So you find it by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, because Kak Desi already disabled internet.
Oh, she disabled internet. Why is she here now?
It's disabled Facebook, disabled everything.
Oh, you mean social media? Oh, social media is different from internet. I mean, I think you still read Wikipedia, like or Google. You still use Google.
Yeah. I usually use YouTube to watch something on YouTube.
Yeah, so that's not cutting the internet. That's just cutting social media.
But I really want to know more about the speech of Soekarno that is fake, like you said,
Okay. I'll probably share something in the group later.
Yeah. Siap. Okay.
Okay. Is there any comment from Farindra or from Fajar?
All wrap up.
Not yet. Okay, I think we have all present our books, and maybe we can make a picture today
Teacher?
with
Yes.
our.
We took our photos though.
Yeah, we need to take photos.
Sudah
Where is
tadi.
Fajar?
Not yet, not with our book. It's informal photos.
I'm still too white. No.
Kabuki.
Nanti I will edit myself in.
Yeah, but you have to take picture. Take this picture. Can
I
you?
will take the photo ya. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Then I will edit myself in nanti. Okay, I will send it to Fajar aja so he can put it to.
So makeup is so important for you, yeah?
Udah Kak? Sudah.
Udah. Fajar
Udah.
has it now.
Fajar is too
Okay.
busy ya. I can tell.
Okay.
Okay, I think this is the end of our meeting. Should I give any summary? Not, yeah? So thank you for coming and see you again next.
Sorry. We have to decide the itu moderator next.
Moderator. Maybe in the group Kak. In the group aja Kak.
The grup aja ya. Okay.
Ya. Yeah.
Alright.
Okay guys, thank you ya. Thank you for the
Thank you.
sharing.
Bye-bye.